What's up, guys? Welcome back to another installment of our Tuesday evening fishing reports. We got a lot of information on quite a few different lakes. There's a couple fishing tournaments this past weekend. We've got a lot of kayaks here. I want to talk about that and some new product that we got into the shop, and obviously fishing. So I'm going to start out with James Robertson. He's continuously giving us fishing reports, which is awesome. James was out at Bullard's Bar this past weekend, and the water temperature is 47 degrees. 10 to 15 foot visibility, which is pretty clear. I know over at Whiskeytown and Shasta, there's still a good stain in the water, but 10 to 15 feet is very, very clear for the conditions we had with all this rain. They could not find fish shallow. So they tried fishing shallow, but all of their fish came from 30 to 70 feet, which is very deep. And if you are fishing that deep, do have something to fizz your fish. If you're pulling them up, or if you're fishing that deep and you're not doing it for a tournament, if you're not doing it competitively, hook your fish and bring them up slowly. It's just better for the fish. They do have an air bladder that's going to expand when you pull them up from those depths. And if you do it really, really fast, or if you don't fizz them, if you're keeping them out of the water for a while for pictures or trying to get them measured for any tournaments that are up, you can damage the fish. So think about getting a fizzer. You should have a fizzer if you're fishing deep and in winter always. But they got them on a 3/4 ounce jig, so a big one, full-size jig, something like that. And then the cool thing about these jigs, before I talk about anything else, is the skirt. So this is a living rubber skirt. A rubber skirt is going to be far more buoyant, and what that means is those strands want to float. So you're going to get a lot of action when you're putting in very little movement. When you drag it, it's going to collapse, and instead of that trailer falling down, it's going to be up and undulating a bit, which is pretty cool. As a trailer for this bait, he was throwing it with a Senko. So not a full-size Senko. It was bitten down so it actually fit the bait. But think of it like a Ned rig. You've now turned your jig into something that's very finesseful. Senkos are very, very soft. When you bump into something, it's going to shake a little bit. It's very, very finesse. You still have a big profile, but it's still a finesse bait, and it gets down to that deeper water. In 30 feet, anything deeper than that, you're doing a 3/4 to an ounce. So depending on the wind, just to keep bottom contact and feel, a jig is a great option for that depth. They were also getting them on drop shots, and I forgot to grab my drop shot weights, but as you guys know, there are round drop shot weights and cylinder drop shot weights. And this was actually brought to my attention recently, so I'm going to give it to you guys, is the round weights drop straight. A cylinder weight does not fall straight down. It's going to spin and it's going to come off target. So if you're vertical fishing these fish, if you see them on the fish finder and you want to drop straight down on their head, get a heavy round weight. I believe the teardrop weights will fall very straight as well. But the cylinder weights, my thought in the past was that you're using them in grass or structure because they're going to slide through, and they do. But if you cast them out to drag them, they fish really well, whereas the round ones, they'll fall straight. So if you're dropping it on something's head, think about doing a ball style drop shot weight, and if you're casting them, the cylinder style. So just some food for thought. It works great. But they were drop shotting the Haze Dong. Again, it's a mega bass bait. It's a small swim bait, and obviously this isn't it. It's a 3-inch swim bait. This is a high-tech, a 2.8, which is a great drop shot bait as well. But they were throwing the mega bass ones, and it's a killer bait. They catch a lot of fish with those, and it looked absolutely beautiful over there. So if you go and look up Headwaters Fishing Team, there are some posts up there from our guys, and there's waterfalls coming into the lake. It looked really cool. They were also getting them on Carolina rigs, and on the Carolina rigs, he was getting them with the hula grub, which my bread and butter. I love me a hula grub. Also an easy shiner, which is another Kitech swim bait, but it's thin, so it's a much slimmer profile. It doesn't push as much water. Again, another finesseful bait. These fish are still deep. They're still cold. They still don't want to be too terribly active. And then they still fishing that coontail worm from, I believe it's Big Bite Baits. And that's another one, dragging that or a Senko or any thicker worm style bait. That one is ribbed, so it does move a lot of water, even with that really slow retrieve and dragging it on a ball and chain like that. James Croco, all of these fish, I believe, 30 to 70 feet. Also, they were kokanee fishing was apparently very slow there on Friday, but on Saturday they were absolutely killing them in 30 to 70 feet of water, and I didn't get what they were catching them on, but go pull a Dodger and a hoochie around. You can't go wrong. And don't forget your corn. You need to have your corn. James Croco, he was fishing New Maloney's. We got a 49-degree water temperature there. So as we're getting close to 50s, as we're getting into low 50s and pre-spawn thoughts, things are going to get really, really fun. As of right now, it seems like everybody's catching a decent amount of fish, which obviously is fun. But as it starts to get even warmer, you're able to fish in more different ways. They get shallower. They're hungry. They're moving up to feed for that pre-spawn mode. But over at Maloney's, he was fishing wind-blown main points. So the fish are still going to be on those main points until it starts heating up, and then they're going to start working back to those secondary points and back into pockets to get ready to spawn. So you can follow them. As long as it's cold, start on the points, think about the main lake, and then as it starts to heat up, start following them back because they're going to start migrating. He was getting them from 0 feet to 30 feet. So really it's lake to lake, going to depend on the depth that you're fishing. All of them fish so different, it's very hard to tell sometimes. So myself, I like to fish shallow. I start shallow, or if you're out there first thing in the morning, it's really cold, I might start a little deeper and shallow up as the day goes on. But it really depends on your own personal lake where you're fishing. But they're getting them on a jig and the guppy head with the 2.8s, which I'm very happy to say we are now carrying the Dirty Jigs guppy heads. These are an awesome little bait because they have a 1/0 hook in them, and that short shank hook does not overpower your little bait because the size of your swim bait and the weight of the head. Something like this is 1/4 ounce. You can fish this in 30, 40 feet of water pretty easily. There is not a lot of plastic here to have resistance to pull that up out of the strike zone, so you could fish it incredibly slow. You can drag it on the bottom. You could fish it a little faster. You're still going to be anywhere from 20 feet plus generally with a 1/4 ounce. We also have them in 3/16 and 8s. The other bait that's been doing well again over at Whiskeytown are the underspins with the same little baits. The 2.8s and the 3.3s in that Pro Blue Shiner have been doing pretty good. They've got a very shiny bottom side, and the fish have been seeming to like those. With the underspins, we've got the Pulse fish lures, and we've got the Cool Baits. And the Cool Baits one is really cool because as you increase your jig head size, your blade size increases too. So you're going to get a little bit more flash, a little bit more vibration, and if you're dragging it on the bottom, you have more surface area tinking against the rocks and making some noise. I will say a little bit stouter hook, which is nice because there is a lot of cover in the water, but this one is definitely going to be more finesseful. It's a lighter wire hook, and it's actually a shorter shank. So if you're doing the smaller baits, this is a great option. If you're doing the 3.3s and up, the Cool Baits is another great option. Fish-wise, I like them both. They catch a lot of fish, but come check them out. Whiskeytown, they're eating it really, really good. As we're moving on, I did see another one of our coworkers, Justin. He was out at Whiskeytown, and again, kind of odd, he found his fish very shallow in about 4 feet of water, and he was getting them on a crankbait. And the crankbaits he was using are going to be a brighter style crankbait. So here we've got a blue and chartreuse. That one is a root beer chartreuse cross, so kind of like a fire tiger color. And then that one is called Old School, which is a yellowy with a black back, but something to stand out in the stained water. The water's not chocolate milk, so it doesn't have to be crazy obnoxious. That's why I kind of like something like this, because even though it's yellow, it's a faded yellow. So even in that, you've got, say, 3 to 5 foot visibility, it still looks natural enough, especially if you notice the fish that a lot of people have been catching, especially deeper fish, they're very pale, almost a yellowish. Guess what that bait looks like in off-colored water? It looks like a fish that came up from deeper water and hasn't seen the sun in a while, cold, pale, and I think it's going to get more bites. Again, he was catching them on more of that fire tiger color, which is great bait for stained water. You can't beat it. But the thing is, he didn't catch a lot of fish. He caught a couple shallow in the same general vicinity, and then nothing else. Marking a bunch of fish down in the 20-foot range, 20 foot suspended over 40, 20 foot suspended over 60, 20 foot on the bottom and 20. All of these fish were in 20 foot. You know what that means? It means they're resting on the thermocline. That's where the warmer water is. So these fish are moving up assumedly because that's where the kokanee and the trout are going to be, and then the crawdads will start moving their way up into the sunshine to sit on these rocks as well, because they spawn in the spring too, or they lay eggs. So a lot of the food is going to want to be warming up, and again, the water level is colder on the top, so the fish are moving up to feed. And then I think they head right back down to 20 foot. If you could find them in 20 foot and get them to bite, that's where your schools are going to be. So if you can turn that school on, either drop shots, crankbait, swim bait, something to get their attention. If you get one, you might have a chance to get quite a few. And it's just, again, it's this time of year. They're kind of schooled up, but they're not particularly easy to catch. Depends on the day, but go out there and try. Use this as a base, target that 20-foot area, and go from there. Don't be afraid to fish shallow. Give it a shot, and you can get reaction bites. The other thing that's good for that shallow water fishing, chatterbaits or spinnerbaits, again, something that is a white chartreuse, so something that's going to stand out, or a black and blue, a black and red, something along those lines where you're stained to dirty water, it's going to be something focal that they can target. If you went really, really natural, maybe less so with this because you have the vibration, but as you get more natural in that stained water, they have a hard time finding it. Like something like this, I would throw on the underspin, but right now just doing a plain jig head, they can't see it as well. And they can still find it, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to try to increase the odds by giving a little bit of flash of vibration just to help. It's still finesse. If you can't get bit or you're short striking, try drop down. Fish never follow their own rules, but it's a good place to start. Over at Shasta, besides there being a bass tournament, Jeff Goodwin's guide service, where if you like trout fishing, go check him out. They had a 45-degree water temperature, and they're fishing a lot of the main lake. That water is going to be warmer, and it's going to be a little bit less dirty towards the middle, towards the south end of the lake. They're catching them on spoons, and the quality of their fish is really good, but because of this cold weather, it kind of spreads the fish out. As it warms up, it's going to start to school these fish together, and you could target them a little bit more easy. Right now, they're on the surface, they're roaming around. They can be literally anywhere, so you just have to cover water. They're catching them on spoons, so go out there. Here we've got Castmasters and Little Cleos. There's tons and tons and tons of spoons on the market, but pick one up, go cast it out, get it 100 feet behind the boat, and start pedaling around. You should be able to find something. And the quality of the trout looked really nice. Good eating size fish. So let's get to the tournaments. There was a new gen tournament over at Clear Lake, and it was a 2-day event. 58.85 pounds won it, which means they're having some good bags every day. And I saw the pictures of the fish. There's a lot of nice fish. There was big fish was just under 11 pounds, 10.78. So it looks like Clear Lake is fishing great. There's a lot of 2, 3, 4 pounders caught. Again, go check out the pictures. It's from New Gen, is the tournament series. And then even down to 22nd place, they still had a 43.64 pound bag. It looked like a lot of people had limits. The fish don't look that yellowy color like they're coming out from deep as they have previously. And again, that lake is not particularly deep, but the fish are a little bit darker. I assume that means they're going to be getting a little bit shallower, moving and feeding, just because it being shallow, the water's going to warm up sooner and you're going to have, more active fish. But it looks like they're feeding up. So if you get a chance, go out to Clear Lake. Clear Lake's awesome. Pre-spawn out there is amazing. If you go a little early, you can't really go too early. It's not frigid cold anymore, and you just have to hit it on that right day to when they kick on and go into feed mode, you can absolutely hammer some giant fish out there. And then we had the Wild West over here at Shasta, and they had some good results. That was a 3-day tournament. For 3 days, 38.89 pounds won it. That took first. But it was your average bags from 9 to 15 pounds, but they weighed in a lot of fish. So they're catching fish right now. It's not particularly tough to go get bit. So go out there and throw your Ned rigs, your drop shots, your small Kitex, your underspins, your jigs. Really, that still finesse style Shasta specific baits. I mean, stuff that works everywhere. You got your Kitech jigs, your regular standard jigs. You could find them, again, on reaction baits. It really just depends at being at the right spot, the right time. There's fish that are going to be shallow. There's fish that are going to be deep. There's fish that are going to be willing to chase. There's fish that are going to be stuck on the bottom and still cold and not wanting to. So depending on where you are, try a wide range of things. If you get bit, if you catch a couple fish, think about what you're doing, think about where you were, how deep you were, and think about other techniques that you can try to back up what you've already done. So if you catch 2 fish out of one spot on something like a Kitech and they stop hitting it, give it 10 minutes, go back with a jig. See if you could pull a few more. Where there's one, there's more. They're hardly ever alone, especially this time of year. A lot are schooled up. And again, same thing, even if you find them shallow, you'll find 1 or 2, and then you can't find them anymore. So they're usually not singled out. The other thing I want to talk about too is we got a whole bunch of kayaks. So if you guys are looking to get into something for this fishing season, I'm sorry, I haven't been reading these. Looks like you've been talking. How you doing, guys? Yeah, James Roberts Corn. Can you? What's your price on the Kitech jigs? They are. What I just set it down right here. $7.59 for the Kitech jigs, and we just got a bunch of them in stock. We've got a whole lot of the green pumpkin, which if I had to pick one, it's going to be green pumpkin. We've got a lot of the PB&J, the green pumpkin black. We've got the green pumpkin blue flake, which is another killer color. And I like the black and blue. Doesn't seem to sell as well, but I throw it and I catch a bunch of fish on it. So me personally, yes, James Robert Corn. You have to have that on the back of your hooks. For some reason, Kokanee like it. I see that Brian's been replying to you guys too, so that's awesome. But yeah, as I was getting, if you guys are looking to get into a kayak for the season, because it's coming up fast. We had that last week of mid 60 degree weather, and it was great. I can't wait for it again. It's a great time to get into it before pre-spawn. It's a great time to get into it just because we have so much water this year. It's going to be a nice time just to be out on the lake, paddle around, even if you're not fishing. It's just good to be out. So we've got Hobies. We carry Old Towns now. We've got tons of paddle boards if that's something you're interested in. A lot of people are doing paddleboard fishing, which is a lot of fun because if you hook into a nice fish, you go on quite a sleigh ride. If you put your feet right, you can kind of surf behind it, put off a little bow wake. We've got eddy lines. We've got some 2021 boats that we're trying to get rid of. We've got a few used Hobies that we're selling pretty cheap. So if you're looking to get into anything for the season, now's the time. Yeah, and then we have Crescents coming in. It's not going to be too much longer. What we're pointing at? Headwaters Adventure? Sorry. Yeah, we've got 106, and we've got, I believe, 1 or 2 of the 120s right now as well. Awesome boats, bulletproof drives, and they float. So that's something really cool about the Old Town line of pedal kayaks. If you drop your drive in the water, they float pretty high. But yeah, that's about it. Stay tuned. This week, we should be getting out. I'm going to be going steelhead fishing on some overnight camping. Hopefully some good pictures and some good stuff to talk about. And I know there's a bunch of guys who are going to be getting out because the weather's not supposed to be too bad. So stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Thanks for participating. I'm stoked that everybody is talking to us and that we had a consistent number of people watching tonight. So until next time, stay fishy, my friends. Done. Are we still on? Still says, no, we're done. It stopped. We had consistent. Is it not? Oh, my bad, guys. I think my computer froze. I'm trying to end the stream. Technical difficulties.